Today's Chitas, yes, Zion, Menachem, and it's Igeres HaKedesh Gimel. Yeah, this is the first Igeres HaKedesh about tzedakah. I've told you a bunch of times that the entire Igeres HaKedesh revolves to a great extent around tzedakah. It's not the only topic. Like, for example, the first two letters talked about davening and about learning and about humility, but there's an enormous amount of centricity on tzedakah. The Alter Rebbe believed that the solution to all of the Avodas Hashem weaknesses of people in his times, it was tzedakah. He says in the earlier times it was the Talmud Teda Keneged Kulam. Later on it was through Tefillah and through Mesiras Nefesh. He says by us it's only through tzedakah. So this is the first of many Geras HaKedesh B'Neged to giving tzedakah. And I suppose the way to say it is like this. The Alter Rebbe was collecting money for different causes. His most famous cause was, of course, the Tzidkas Eretz Yisrael. He was raising money to support the Yidden living in Eretz Yisrael. The Yishuv of Hasidim living in Eretz Yisrael. The Tzedakah of Eretz Yisrael. There was a Yishuv of Hasidim that went to Eretz Yisrael. And living in Israel was very, very difficult in those days. And people had Mesiras Nefesh to live in Israel, and it was customary for Yidden from Europe to support them. So there was a Keil of Hasidim that lived in Eretz Yisrael that the Rabbeim was supporting. Chatchila was one big Keil for all Hasidim, then later, because of Machlekes, it became uniquely Keil Chabad, which exists on the Yom It's the oldest Lubavitcher Tzedakah. So frequently, when he would send around the Shluchim to raise funds, and one of the famous Shluchim was a Jew by the name of Yankiv Smilyaner. Yankiv Yireshut Samach, Yankiv Smilyan. He would send along a letter, and the purpose of this letter was to create a new, fresh interest in giving tzedakah. And this is such an example, and there are many such examples. So he begins like this: Gimel, Vayil Bash Tzedakah Kasirin, it's a pasuk in Chum in Tanakh, and he dresses himself in tzedakah like a Syrian, means like a suit of mail. They used to have armor of steel, right, to protect themselves against swords and bayonets and spears. So they had these big steel like walls, which were very cumbersome. Then they figured out a way of making him out of rings. So you had a lot of mobility, you could allowed to move around. So they used to make these suits of mail out of these little rings, but rings have holes, so of every ring there was a little flap that covered it. And V'keva Yeshua, and there's a helmet of salvation Bereshi on his head. This is a typical soldier, goes to war with Syrian and Koiva, with a suit of mail and a helmet. But the Ruchnius is connected to Tzedakah and to Yeshua. And then he brings the Gemara. The Gemara says, Ma Syrian Zeh, just like this suit of mail, called Klipa, all the little scales, they look like fish scales. Mitzarefas, the Syrian Gadol, adds up to a great suit of armor. Of Tzedakah, the same is true in Tzedakah. Called Pruta, every penny, it all collects, Mitzarefas, adds up, Lacheshman Gadol, to a great Cheshman. Pirish, in other words, that Shasiri, Nasu Mikaskasim on the Kovit. The Syrian, the suit of mail, was made out of rings. And over each ring there was a kaskasim, a little scale, to protect it. Ve'maginim, which protects it, that no spear should go into these holes. And as you'll learn this again, you'll see that the Alter Rebbe is going to explain three things. Number one, what does it mean that stuck is like a suit of mail? Number two, what it means that there's a helmet on top of your head. And number three, what the Gemara says, that these small little rings are a chesh ben gadol, to protect the person. There's going to be 3 points. The first half of the pasuk, the second half of the pasuk, and the Gemara. Or to say it differently, the first half of the pasuk, then he's going to explain the Gemara, and lastly he's going to explain the second half of the pasuk. Ubi ra'in, the idea is as follows. Kigelet tzedakah is great, mikol mitzvahs, and all the mitzvahs. That means all mitzvahs are great, but tzedakah is greater. Why? Because when a yid does mitzvahs, nasim levushim la neshama, it creates garments for the soul. Hanim Shacham, which bring down Me'edein Seiv Baruchu from the infinite light of the Eibishter Mebechina Seiv of Kalam, from the level of Seiv of Kalam. Timavu Arapidash, as the idea is explained, Memale Kalam and the Seiv of Kalam and Bulukuti Amarim Ayin Sham and Tanya and whatever it is in Perek Mem Ches and in an earlier Parakim. I think the Rebbe says also in Perek Mem Aleph. He explains the Memale Kalam and Seiv of Kalam. So we know what Memale Kalam means, what Seiv of Kalam means. Memale Kalam means light which is revealed and limited. Seiv of Kalam normally means light which is infinite but hidden. Through mitzvahs, we create garments to reveal Seiv of Kalaman as well. That you should be a keli for the Gid of Seiv of Kalaman, and especially through tzedakah. How? Because the Beisarusa Dilatata, there's an arouser from below. He mitzvahs havayit, the Eibishter giving us the commandments, which is named from Kabbalah Seil. V'ratz Nali Baruch on the revelation of the infinite will of the Eibishter. And when we do mitzvahs, we create a garment which brings down Seiv of Kalam. Zag the Rebbe v'Ikram Shachar Zomer in Seiv Baruch Hu. And the primary bringing you down to this infinite light of Sevav Kalam through mitzvahs hu levush ve'er makif. It is a garment and an indirect, a hidden light. Lo yud sfiras dabiyah. First of all, it goes to the 10 sfiras of the 4 worlds. Avatzilus briyatzir nasiyam, that by themselves, hamishtalshas, they're a chain reaction of worlds. Me'i la le'ila, from cause to cause, yumadreg la madrega, from step to step, v'chuli, and so on. Hanekras b'shem, which is called by the name of Malak Alam, and the light of Hashem, which is limited and distinct and revealed in the respective worlds. Pirush, this means that the Eibishter creates the worlds. Yeah? And each world the Eibishter created has a center. And around the center you have the rest of the world. We talked about this many times. The center of every world is where the Shekhinah rests. This is the Beis HaMikdash. In mystical terms, the center of each world where the Shekhinah, the Beis HaMikdash, rests, this is the Esesfiris. So there's Esesfiris of Atzilus, this is like the Beis HaMikdash in Atzilus. Esesfiris of Bria is the Beis HaMikdash of Bria. Esesfiris of Yetzirah is the Beis HaMikdash in Yetzirah. And the Beis HaMikdash in Asiya is the Esesfiris of Asiya. So these Batei Mikdash are godly and limited. The world around them is not godly, it's Amitzias, right? In Atzilus, I don't know if you can say that it's not godly, but in the other worlds, for sure, you could say that they're not godly. So when you do a mitzvah, he says that you should know that the place where Sevav Kalaman is revealed predominantly is in the Eser Sfiris. So what's Eser Sfiris? It's like the Beis HaMikdash of the world. When you do mitzvahs, you deposit godliness to the Beis HaMikdash of those worlds. Pirush, in other words, Ke'ein Seif Baruch with the infinite light of the Eibishter, which is connected to mitzvahs. Misla B'Shumeir is revealed and emanating. B'Teich Kol Ishtalshus, throughout the chain reaction of worlds of Ishtalshus, as the spheres, the 10 spheres, Datzilus B'Riya Yetzirah Asiya of the 4 worlds. Atzilus Yetzirah B'Riya Yetzirah Asiya V'U'amaytzel as the spheres Datzilus. And it is the source that emanates the 10 spheres of Atzilus. Hamishtalshus, which then later comes down, B'Riya Yetzirah Asiya, to the lower worlds of B'Riya Yetzirah Asiya. Ayadei Tzimtzum Otzum, through a very, very strong Tzimtzum. Hamavu Beitz Chaim, which is explained in Kabbalah of a Nikra Epnimi, it's called a limited and revealed light. So what's the Alter Rebbe saying? That the way the Eibishter creates the world, first he creates Atzilus, then he creates Bria, then he creates Yetzirah, then he creates Asiyah, so the Ein Sof, which goes through these 4 worlds, beginning with Atzilus, and especially continuing with Bria, Yetzirah, and Asiyah, is the infant Tzimtzum. However, when you do a mitzvah, now you bring down a hidden light or an infinite light. But it should shine in a revealed way in the Esesfiris. In other words, which is usually infinite and hidden, it becomes one with and revealed in the inner light. And it's called in a particular Kabbalistic context. The unity of Kutchabrichu. Kutchabrichu would now be Sevav Kalaman, and Shchinte would now be Malak Kalaman. It's discussed in other places. Okay, so the idea is when you do mitzvahs, you bring down Ein Safa Sevav Kalaman. Where you bring down Ein Safa Sevav Kalaman into the Esesfiras of the 4 worlds, which are by themselves limited, and Sevav Kalaman is infinite. Says the Rebbe, Umei Ha'ara de Ha'ara, and from a ray of a ray. Me'er makif anal, from this hidden light, which shines in the 10 spheres, the 4 worlds, in other words, Sevav Kalaman, which shines through mitzvahs. Ayedei tzimtzum rav, through future tzimtzum. Nasa lavush, it creates a garment, lebechinas nefesh, ruach, neshama, shala adam Gan Eden, for the neshama of a person in Gan Eden, whether he's a tachne, lower Gan Eden, the higher Gan Eden, so that yuchlu lehanis, they should be able to have pleasure, 5 lines from the bottom. Well, a hazik, and to have some kind of a reach, eza hasaga, v'ha'ara, some kind of an intellectual reach and a sense of delight, me'erein seiv baruch, from the infinite light of the Eibishter, because of Mokamacha, as explained in other places. So basically, he's saying like this: the Eibishter created the world with Mamala Kalam, mitzvahs, and specifically tzedakah bring down Sevav Kalam, and it shines into the 10 spheres. But from the 10 spheres, a subsequent light creates for neshamas and Gan Eden, which are on a lower level than the 10 spheres, a garment that should be able to experience the light. I want you to understand how it works. When you say a neshama is in Gan Eden, it's a little bit of a misnomer, because Gan Eden is the same thing as Esesfiris. Okay, but nobody lives in Gan Eden. Lamaila, there's no entrance to the Beis HaMikdash. Nobody lives there except the mitzvahs. The shamas that go Lamaila live in the worlds of Bria, the worlds of Yitzir, the world of Asir, not in the Beis HaMikdash. But there's windows And through the windows, the light of the Beis HaMikdash shines to the creations that live in the world which is surrounding the Beis HaMikdash per se. You follow? Mm-hmm. You understand that, right? So you need garments to conduct the light. If you're sitting in this room full of light and you're blind, you can't see. You live in a place where there's light and you have no physical reflectors, you don't experience the light. So the Eibishter gives a garment for the neshama which is really outside the Beis HaMikdash to experience the light which is radiating from the Beis HaMikdash, radiating from the 10 spheres to the person. So there's 3 steps. Step number 1, Eden Savasevakam shines in the Beis HaMikdash, called as a spheres to tzedakah. Step number 2, the Eibishter makes a tzimtzum to give the neshama in Gan Eden a garment to experience Sevav Kol. Step number 3, the Sevav Kol, which is in the Beis HaMikdash, shines through the Beis HaMikdash windows, through the spheres to the neshamas that are in the worlds of Beit Nasiyah. They should be able to experience the light of Gan Eden, light of Ein Sof HaSevav Kol through mitzvah. So basically, the world by itself is Mamala Kol, and mitzvah is Sevav Kol. But there's a catch. On the one hand, we're talking about Sevav Kol being revealed. On the other hand, we're talking about Sevav Kol being available, which is a conflict. And of course, the resolution is tzimtzum. The light is tzimtzumed. The light is contracted, so that on the one hand, the light reaches you in a way that doesn't destroy you, but on the other hand, it's takasevav kolaman. So therefore, the tzimtzum doesn't mean, it's a concentration of the light. It's not making it less, it's concentrating. Usually, tzimtzum means making it less. Over here, tzimtzum has to mean some kind of a concentration of sevav kolaman, which should be able to reach us. We should be able to have it on the one hand, and on the other hand, it should be lefiyerachas. The Rebbe Zeh Shamar Razal. This is the pshat what the Gemara says. Tzchar mitzvah reward for mitzvah b'hayal maleka in this world, meaning in the Gashmiistic world there is not. Now I want you to know normally tzchar mitzvah b'hayal maleka means that there's no reward until Mashiach comes, till Elam Haba. Here he says tzchar mitzvah b'hayal maleka means in the physical world as opposed to in Gan Eden. In this physical world, which is limited, unlimited. And the contraction is very great and very, very intense. It cannot be. The Slav should be revealed. Shum ha'ara, any light made in Seiv Baruch Hu from the infinite light of the Eibush to the Kiyam only. Al Yedeh, if it passes 3 Yud Sfiris. The 10 Sfiris, which is the Beis HaMikdash of the respective worlds that I spoke to you about before, Hanikraim Gufa, which you call the body of godliness, so to speak, Bezeir HaKadosh and Zeir HaKadosh. Right? This is what the Alter Rebbe is saying. Chesed, Deraya Yamina, Chesed Hashem's right hand, V'chuli, and so forth. The Fishek Mei. Because just as you cannot compare the physical body to the soul, kach, to a greater extent, you can't compare klal whatsoever. The 10 spheres of Atzilus, the source of Atzilus, which is infinite. Even Chachma Atzilus, which is the first of the 10 spheres, is considered like physical action alone. Committed infinite of the Eibush, was mentioned in many places in the Likutei Amarim in Tanya, that Chachma compared to Ein Sof is nothing. So the Alter Rebbe says that in order for Ein Sof to come down into the creation, for Sevav Kol the creation, he has to pass through the spheres. The Ilah and therefore the Ma'isa Tzedakah v'Gamach, when a person does an act of tzedakah and giving Mos Chasadim, she'adam mechal perasei be'elam hazeh, that there's schar taka in this lifetime also, not just in Elam Haba. So since there's other mechal perasei be'elam hazeh, the Alter Rebbe has a taich. He cannot taich schar mitzvah b'hayal maleka at all. He means that in Gan Eden there is a schar. Yesh nekuvim these holes. Al derech ma'ash boy of analogy, b'levush ha'elyon in the supernal garment, hamakif al gufa that surrounds the body, meaning the spheres. Hey, Makel and the spheres and spheres of Atzilus, which is like, so to speak, the Beis HaMikdash, and the center of each world. And there's a garment which surrounds it. And then there's holes in this garment. And through the holes in this garment, Sevav Kol penetrates through when the Hitler Satan does mitzvahs, and specifically tzedakah. Lahayir mehem, to radiate through them, ulashpia, and to give a flow of eir v'shef, a light and a flow of mechased dereya yamuna, from the chesed, which is Hashem's right hand, eirech yamim, long life be'elam hazeh, in this world, agashmi, that's physical, ve'eshen, and wealth, covered in honor, which of course comes midreya smola, from the left arm of Hashem, v'chein, and from v'tiferes you have v'hoid, v'hoda, v'ched, v'chuli, and so on. So Hesis Hazeh, each one of the midas of Atzilus are limited, they're godly, but they're limited. And there's a garment which surrounds them, and through the holes of that garment, which is the first part of the pasuk, Yilbash Staka Kasirian. There's a garment that surrounds the spheres of Atzilus, it has little holes. and the Ein Sof HaSefer Kalaman penetrates those little holes and comes into the Esesfiris, and through the Esesfiris has the Shaykhis to us. This explains the first half of the pasuk. That tzedakah becomes a garment like a sidian, which means it has holes. Even though the Esesfiris are a lakus, but they're limited, and through the holes in that garment, Ein Sof is shining. Now we're going to analyze what the Gemara says, that it called pruto, mitzarefes l'cheshbon gadol. Little pennies add up to a great sum. It says, this save of Kalaman, which is now coming into the Esesfiras of Atzilas, and through the Esesfiras of Atzilas, it's reaching the Shamas and Gan Eden. That Klippas should not be able to nourish. Lamaila on high, from this light and flow. Which is going through the chain reaction and descending from a higher level to a lower level. Till this physical world. Moreover, down here, to guard the person, to shield the person. And to guard him until Atili, and to save him from all bad things, physically and spiritually. Not just to protect the godliness of Save of Kalam, but to protect the person who's giving tzedakah. Right? This is already a second idea. The first idea was that Save of Kalam comes into the world through the Esesfiris, through the holes. Second idea is that now that it comes in, Save of Kalam comes into the world through these holes, it has to be protected. First of all, Klippa shouldn't get it, and second of all, it should protect the Jew. I don't know why he has to have such a concern about Klippa protecting it, but I have a suspicion. And my suspicion is, because since it's Save of Kalam, and Save of Kalam is infinite. And one of the rules about infinity is that it doesn't make any distinction between good and evil. Everything is the same. So you have to protect it. And this is the second point. Therefore, it repeats again, and it shines Eiramakif, this hidden light. It closes up the hole. There are holes in the garment which allows Save of Kalaman through, and then there is a suit of mail, a suit of armor has little rings, which lets the hole through, and there's a flap. So the holes in the rings represent the let the Save of Kalaman in, and the flap is to protect that it should go only where it needs to go. It's a mushal, of course, not where it mustn't go, and the protected Yidad here in this world, which is the second Gilui from Save of Kalama that doesn't reveal itself to us, but it protects that the Gila that comes to us should go only where it should go and not go where it shouldn't go. And I would propose to you that this second Madrega of Ein Sof, which is not the holes let the Save of Kalama through, but the shields that protect that the Save of Kalama that comes through should go to a right place, is even higher than the light which is shining. And this is the Pshat in the Gemara. It's like a small little scales, but they add up to a big cheshbon dafke. Ki gadol Hashem u'mehul u'me'ed. Hashem is great and He's very praised. Believe safe v'tachlis v'chol chas Hashem without any end, without any purpose, without any limitation. God forbid. And that's the pshat. Cheshbon gadol. Cheshbon gadol means a cheshbon which is gadol like gadol avaya. What's the pshat of cheshbon gadol? Adds up to a great number. So what's cheshbon gadol? A great number, big deal. He says cheshbon of the one who was truly gadol. Kol pruto mitzarefes lecheshbon. Every penny of tzedakah you give becomes part of a cheshbon gadol, which is connected to gadol avaya, to the greatness of the Eibishter, and since the greatness of the Eibishter is infinite, it protects that the chayes alaki which comes into the world from a malak alam, a save a kalam shkon l'mokom haroi. You understand?
Well, my father said that the when you give every little penny to tzedakah, whatever, and that itself is the actual arm of the male, that it goes link and link, that every penny counts.
Very good. In other words, the coins are the shield.
Right.
In other words, the act of giving tzedakah being the save of kalaman, but the lavush, the physical coins, are the protection. Very good, pshat.